Columbia University says it will pay more than a $220 million settlement with the Trump administration. In exchange, the government has agreed to return some of the $400 million in federal grants it froze over claims the school failed to stop anti-Semitism on campus in the wake of protests against Israel's war in Gaza. Columbia says as part of the agreement, it will also pay $21 million to settle investigations brought by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. In a statement, the university denies any wrongdoing, but says, quote, the institution's leaders have recognized repeatedly that Jewish students and faculty have experienced painful, unacceptable incidents and that reform was and is needed. Columbia is one of dozens of schools the Trump administration has targeted with funding cuts over claims of anti-Semitism, but is the first to reach a settlement. Beyond Columbia and Harvard, Republican lawmakers are seeking similar changes in higher education in several states. For more on this, I want to bring in Jennifer Ruth. She is a professor of film studies at Portland State University and is also a member of the American Association of University Professors Committee on Academic Freedom. Jennifer, thank you for joining us. You have been a professor involved in the writing or editing of several books on higher education and academic freedom. First, just what do you make of the settlement?
Well, it's extremely concerning, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's understandable that they're looking to settle as quickly as possible and restore some of the funding. But it continues a trend of gaslighting that began under the interim president, Katrina Armstrong, where the statement that Claire Shipman is making, who, by the way, we already see a huge loss of academic freedom in the fact that a board member was then appointed the acting president of Columbia now. But Claire Shipman is making sending out a public statement into campus community that they have managed to preserve academic freedom and control over hiring, et cetera. And so this is supposed to be a win-win. And as your segment just explained, and that there was reform that was already needed. This is a trend of gaslighting at an extraordinarily consequential moment for American democracy, when we have an administration, the Trump administration, that is treating all of the institutions that uphold democracy in America as if they were the deep state, the free press, the career civil service, and of course, higher education. Higher education, this is an overt attack on higher education using anti-Semitism, a real problem, but using it as a pretext to crush and control higher education. The idea that academic freedom is being preserved is laughable. I understand the catch-22 that Shipman and other higher education board members and presidents find themselves in, that if they acknowledge that there has been a huge loss to academic freedom, the ability to do our own investigations when there's complaints of discrimination, the ability to make sure that the federal civil service that is investigating discrimination is doing it in a way that's reasonable, and also controlling our hiring. There's a couple of aspects of the settlement that show that this is just not true, that that academic freedom has been preserved. First of all, they can.
So Jennifer, what can universities do to protect their academic freedoms?
So I think that there's no way around the fact that we're in a catch-22. If higher education institutions acknowledge that there's a loss of academic freedom in the settlements that they are agreeing to, then they risk being under further attack and the settlement not being allowed. So it is a catch-22, but at the heart of higher education is, of course, the pursuit of truth. And the lack of candor and the gaslighting is very obvious to everyone, the general public, the campus communities. And so the loss of legitimacy and the way that these are being presented, I think that what the American Association of University Professors is doing in terms of suing the Trump administration, the AAUP versus Rubio, has already shown the way that the Trump administration has been using things like Canary Mission to find students to deport. All of those kinds of illegitimate tactics have to be exposed in court. So the AAUP also brought a lawsuit against the Trump administration's treatment of Harvard, which then the judge combined that with Harvard's lawsuit. I think there's no way out but through the lawsuits that Harvard too is appeasing in all kinds of ways, but nonetheless through the court system some of the illegitimate tactics that are being used to try to control and bring higher ed to heel will be exposed.
All right, Professor Jennifer Ruth, thank you.
Thank you.